Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to our fireside chat with IBM. We've got a stellar panel, as just mentioned, and we're going to be getting under the bonnet of the brand and talking about innovation and the transformation of this technology giant. My name is Jo Roberts. I'm Head of Education at Circus, and we provide online digital education programs for global brands. As mentioned, I'm going to be moderating the discussion today, and I'm really excited to understand how much the IBM business has been transformed. And we are hoping to have around 5 minutes at the end for any questions, so please do submit them via the chat. And it would be great just to hear a little bit more from the panelists about what you do. So let's start with you, Sharon.
Hi, yes, hi, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I am the lead at IBM for IBM.com for the brand. So the brand in digital across IBM.com.
Thank you, Sharon. And Suzanne, over to you.
Hey, Jo, I look after our brand building experiences based in New York, and that includes teams who build out our client experiences from digital, social, media. Yeah, excited to be here too, to share.
Thank you, Suzanne. And Jess, can you give your introduction? Is Jess here? Oh, we've got Carrie as well.
Jess is our CTO. She's responsible for the MarTech behind the scenes on all of what makes marketing shine beautifully. I don't know where she is. We'll make sure she gets the link.
Okay, great. And finally, Shawn.
Yeah, hey there. So yeah, I lead the digital creative for our experience design across our marketing group.
Great, thank you. So before we delve into the discussion, let's put this conversation into context. So IBM recently announced the launch of its integrated global platform, Let's Create, which it describes as the company's most significant brand initiative in more than a decade. We'll get to hear more about it in a moment, but I'm hoping that we can see a short advert that showcases this great work. Let's see if it plays. We got it here? If not, we might need to come back to it. Okay, oh, here we go.
Every big idea, every game changer, every how'd they do that starts here, the blank page. Artists and writers know the tyranny of it well, but so do developers, data scientists, CTOs, the new creators. To them, we say, let's create something that changes everything. IBM, let's create.
Great, that's great to see. Sharon, you were part of the team that's driven this brand transformation. And I was just really wondering, what challenge or problem are you looking to solve with Let's Create?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for showing the ad. I really love that ad. What we found was IBM does not have a problem with brand recognition, right? Everyone knows IBM. Everyone probably can speak to some of the great inventions that we've had over the 100+ years we've been a company, like the magnetic card strip came from IBM, the barcode came from IBM, and more lately, like nanotechnology chips. So we've got like a really rich history, but what we found in research was people couldn't really put the finger on who we are and what we do now, right? And this was all about now. So that was what was behind the brand platform that we launched. We did a lot of brand identity work, and we found that what we felt we could really own, and really was IBM's identity, was that bringing together of business and science. We don't do it all, but we bring it together. And the business and science coming together, that's where new creators are living, right? So that ad you just saw, it really was meant to make people think about that wonderful, terrifying, and exciting experience of having a blank page to fill, right? And that's what we help people do. And that's really what IBM is. So that's what we feel like we have solved, or we're starting to solve. It's a very big ship with the new creators. And we can't show all of the ads today, but the next drill down layer in those ads goes into 5 focus areas for us, which are security, data and AI, AI operations, consulting, and hybrid cloud. So we actually get a lot more specific after that first ad, which is called the invitation.
Thank you, Sharon. I just wanted to come over to you, Shawn. As we mentioned, that IBM is a complex global business, and I wondered how challenging it's been to create a brand positioning that makes the business proposition easily understood.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everyone knows IBM is by nature a pretty massive company, and along with that, with how long, it's 110, I think, year company. Along with that, there's a pretty extensive portfolio that goes with it, and I think the number one thing that we're trying to do here is really connect with our clients. And we've done that to Sharon's point by being able to align all those offerings around some of those focal points. I think the other big part is defining what a creator is. I think we're looking at a part right now. Everyone here on the planet is part of this huge technology surge. And I think we're at a pivot point now where, what we can build, the art of the possible, isn't being limited anymore by technology. And I think what that winds up leaving is that idea of creativity. What is a creator? And up to this point, I think that's been, kind of centralized around that idea of being artistic. When in reality now, for the survival of a business, we have a lot of these exec level technical roles that are now being forced to think creatively. And we're realizing that, being creative can actually be centered around technology and strategy. So I think it's making those connection points right now that's letting us really push where the brand is going.
Great, and I just wondered how difficult it was to get global buy-in to be unified in this messaging. Were there any challenges?
Definitely, and I think we're still kind of evolving what that relationship looks like. I think any company that has a presence in multiple geos has that issue, whether they're large or small. I think we're fortunate though, because number one, we have a fantastic brand team. They were very thoughtful and diligent about how they crafted this brand rollout. And with that, we had a lot of documentation around how we handle messaging, how do we handle imagery, how do we make sure that we're consistent in that. I think the second part of that comes in the role of actually being better partners in coordinating with our other leaders in geos. That basically goes around looking at what content, for instance, needs to be localized. It goes around looking at translation. I think translation right now is one of the major hurdles that we're looking at. Because while I'm saying, technology is really kind of pushing us along, machine learning translation, for instance, isn't quite there yet. So we've really kind of retooled how we're working with translation to make sure that, what we see in, for instance, the US is going to be very similar or equal to what we see in all of our other geos as well.
Great, thank you, Shawn. Sharon, I was just interested to hear a bit of insight into the scale of the transformation project, because the message is so simple, so great, and it's so clear, but it must have taken a bit of a while to get there. So I just wondered, how long did this transformation take, and what kind of things did it involve?
Yeah, so thank you for saying it's simple. As you know, simple is harder than complex, right? So we had put a huge amount of work into this. We rolled this platform out across everything all at the same time. So it wasn't just advertising, it was design, like Shawn's talked about, it was PR, it was internal comms, external comms, employee learning, recruitment, just events, everything you can think of. From start to finish of the actual brand platform, we did it in less than 3 months. And that includes Christmas and Thanksgiving. Yeah, I was prepping for this call. I thought, oh, I just looked that up. What was it, 6, 8 months? No, it felt like a lot longer, but it was less than 3 months. It was really stunning how fast we did it as a team. And particularly because we had just done a reorg within the company. But there was just so much energy and enthusiasm behind this platform that we just kind of got on with it. Even if we weren't entirely sure what each of our jobs were, we knew where we wanted to get to. So it was actually, it was a very enjoyable process, although extremely stressful.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, 3 months is incredible. And so many brand transformations take a year to 18 months. And I just wondered, were there any processes in place that allowed you to create that change and to create that transformation at speed?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm talking about the brand platform start. Yeah. There was identity work done before that was very rigorous. And we're not finished, right? I mean, it's just begun. So, you know, it's a very big ship to turn, IBM, and I don't expect this to change in the marketplace immediately. That's a good question, though. How did we do it? I think because I don't even really know. I think it's sort of a miracle. I don't know if Suzanne or Shawn have a thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know some of it, to be honest, was some of the deadlines that were kind of set out for this launch. And we had several events and stuff that we wanted to be able to roll this out for. So I think, you know, that the idea of necessity is the mother of invention is kind of falls into play here. I think the other part too is, and I won't get too far into it, but when we think about this brand, you know, it's not you know, recreating IBM. This is an extension of what IBM is, and this is just that next evolution in how we actually express how our brand, how we want to be able to show our brand to the world. So to me, there were already wheels in motion. This is just a little bit more fine tuning and crafting what that message is.
Yeah, and right, the wheels in motion, and it didn't come with. It came with a lot of planning. The biggest spin-off of IBM, where we spun off the Kyndryl company, and that required us to step back and so all that research of when that was happening was thought through. What do we want to be known for? What's our why? So the background research, driven by data, driven by client interviews, really partnering with our clients. With our partners rather. We're so reliant on the whole ecosystem and partners. So this was really built on all of that listening. Then to launch it, as Sharon said, fastest ever, because we held it close to the vest, and the timing of when we wanted to come out with it was important to kick off our year. Yeah.
And Suzanne, can you tell us a bit more about how it's being received both internally across the organization, and do you have any feedback yet about how it's being received out there in the world?
Stellar. In every country, there's just this positive feeling, because it's really bringing together, right, a partnership. It's an invitation to join us and as a catalyst. So I think, I mean, we've heard really positive, whether you're in Japan, whether where it's translated, as Shawn talked about, it's starting to really, I saw this one Twitter, somebody said, I didn't know advertising mattered anymore. And then there was a Twitter note that said, my daughter's walking around singing Let's Create. So and it was not I was like, IBM, I guess the ads do matter. singing the song. It was a recent Twitter post someone shared with me, which I thought,
I love that. That's a good sign.
Kids, right? We are a B2B company. We have not in positive extended reach.
And then Suzanne, we talked about how or you can see out there in the world that a significant percentage of transformations fail, and organizations fail to change because they don't really consider the impact required of their people. And so I just wondered how IBM has brought its people on this journey.
Yeah, and I think we're conflating, like, there's this major message that we had to go out with at the same time, which Sharon alluded to. We took some dramatic steps to position the company to become more nimble as we spun off a piece of the company, get in a position to drive one strategy. And the transformation was really, again, listen to employees. Our biggest challenge was we were internally competing. So dramatic steps was consolidating one marketing organization, resetting our sales strategy, resetting segmentation there. In my career, which has been a long time in IBM, 6 different careers here, different divisions, it's the biggest I've ever been through. But I think, it's all about culture, right? What is culture? At its core, it's about what we believe and we act. Everyone believed this was the right thing to do. Now it's about how do we act and execute on it. So it's been hard. I'm not going to make it like, oh, it's joyful. Oh, it's painful. Hard. It still is. It's still painful for the teams going through it. But what I see coming through, and that's where you have different experts on this phone, we're able to really apply our trade and expertise. And we're coming closer together now that we're doing that, stronger with our sales teams. We're coming together stronger as one company because we know collectively we have some of the best technology and expertise, but we were competing. So now, again, our transformation, it's just getting everyone to just keep saying, I believe, let's execute together. Still hard, but we see the progress. We see the light.
Suzanne, that's such a common problem, isn't it, in global, and perhaps at any organisation that working in silos and having that kind of separate sales and marketing and not working together. Have you already seen the impact of bringing people together on that journey, or is it still, as you say, a work in progress?
Well, I love that Jess joined because some of the impact has really been based on what our marketing technology stack has been able to do, is actually millions of patterns of, what we see on our clients' behavior. And that's all been in a vault that sounds like, I don't know what you do, marketing. And marketing's like, we don't know what you do, sales. Well, now we are collectively showing sellers. And so that is what's causing us to come together as a team. Is this capability that Jess has been working on, giving us the ability to work as one unified team in support of the client.
Great. Well, that's a great introduction there, or to bring in Jess here. Hi, Jess. So we've been talking about the brand transformation and the people transformation. And so I would love to hear from you about the technology transformation. And I would just love to get some insights into how significant that technology transformation has been, what it's allowed IBM to do that it wasn't doing before.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a pretty massive shift over the course of the last 2 years and did a huge investment in both the Adobe Marketing Cloud as well as Sales Cloud. And with that, it gave us an opportunity, I jokingly call it like we blew up the entire Jenga tower that was our stack instead of just swapping out a couple pieces. It gave us an opportunity to genuinely change our business process in a way that we've never been able to before, right? Every other time that we've done these transformations, we get maybe 2% better because we're constantly working at a point where we have all these individual platforms in place that are around our old process. And if we only change 1 or 2, we're not really revamping that from the ground up. And by doing this massive shift, it let us say, what should marketing look like? And what should the process be? And give us an opportunity to really revamp it from the ground up.
Great, Jess, I've heard it described as the biggest transformation in an IBM's history. Would you agree with that?
I would say yes. It is still ongoing. Anyone that's dealt with MarTech stacks knows it's an ongoing process that is constantly evolving. And my view of it is, with this first wave, we've set the foundation to then make greater improvements over time. Still happening in a massive way, but what we're really trying to get to is a point where we have a holistic view of our clients and then can engage with them across the enterprise in a consistent, repeatable way.
And you said there that you basically exploded your tech stack, which sounds brilliant, but also quite scary. What challenges have you come across along the way? Because obviously, maybe it's easier just to change, like you say, just swap one thing out. And obviously this big this big change has allowed you to make big differences, but I just wondered how challenging that has been.
Oh, it's been very challenging. I won't kid. In our case, we decided to do all of the work at the same time and gave ourselves a very aggressive timeline of a year and a half to wrap up everything, to get all 5 platforms stood up, sunset 14 others, and define the process as part of that. Honestly, you know, I was one of the ones that convinced them to do it all at the same time. Now that we've lived through it, I probably would have staggered some of it a little bit. The benefit of what we did is that it did force the conversations around the strategy and the process up front. That said, some of the components, like us swapping in Target, for example, could have been delayed maybe 6 months from a platform stand-up point, because until you get some of the foundational integrations done for things like the CMS and the DAM, there's no point in doing that personalization. So we had that up and ready and implemented, frankly, across both of our CMSs very early on, because it was quicker to set up. But it did lead to some confusion around what content are we serving, because we haven't implemented some of the new models. So, you know, learning over time. But I do think it was the right move from a process and strategy standpoint.
What I'm hearing from all of you is, first of all of the projects or transformations are hugely ambitious. And the other thing I love is that you're not saying it's an end process. It's not a project that's done. It's iterating all the time. And I just wondered what it's actually like to work in an organization that's just constantly evolving and changing, because that's not, you can't take that for granted. That doesn't happen in all organizations. Jess, I wondered what it's like for you.
It's alternately terrifying and exciting, I have to say. I don't, and I won't speak for everyone else, so I'm curious on their thoughts on this. It definitely keeps you on your toes, and it keeps you constantly looking towards the end goal of what you're trying to achieve and evaluating your performance. I mean, I personally like evolving and like change, so it definitely keeps me from being bored. But I know some people find it very stressful. So I don't know if any of the rest of you have any points of comment on that.
Yeah, go on, Shawn.
I definitely feel the same way. I actually really love it. I've been at IBM on and off for about 8 years now total. And I know with how big the company is, specifically around the design culture, that has always been evolution or progress in the work. So, you know, much like the company, I feel like that particular discipline has been constantly changing and for the better. And we're finally starting to see what some of the net benefits of that are. IBM has Carbon, which is their open design system. And it is, you know, out of any design system I work with, probably the most comprehensive. And all that work and evolution now is starting to pay dividends in the way that's allowing us to, when we change gears, when we need to adapt, when we draw up new campaigns, how that actually manifests itself in our experiences is a lot easier. I'm not saying it's paint by numbers necessarily, but the groundwork is already laid out because we have a fantastic design system that we're starting with.
Sharon, I just was really interested, first of all, to hear how you feel about working within this culture of continuous change, and then perhaps we could go on to hear a bit about what the future holds.
Yeah, sure. So I think we're all here because we like this stuff. We're in these roles because we like that, like without a net, blank sheet of paper kind of feeling. Like all my past roles have been like this. So I enjoy it. I'm newer to IBM, but I've been a long-time fan, and I really wanted to come and work at IBM. So what the future holds is more of this. So what you saw was what we call the first chapter. We have 2 other chapters of the brand platform. The second one is happening now, and it is more focused on our clients, as it should be, because I think it's the best way to show, don't tell of what we really do. And there's just some amazing stuff. And I think it's what we want to do is for people to actually understand all of the amazing work that actually happens between us and our clients. And I don't think it is often, people assume maybe it's someone else doing it, but it's actually us. And then we have a third chapter that gets deeper back into the platform around the new creators. And I can't say too much about that because it's coming, but I have to say that that's the one I'm most excited about. It's going to be some really gorgeous work. So I'm excited to see it. When we launched chapter 1, it was in 14 countries in 8 languages, 98 pages, simultaneously on the same day across all of the platforms, all the way into learning, as well as digital and design and advertising. And we just keep doing it like that. Having done that the first time, then I think everything we do is going to keep being spectacular. So we've set a high bar for ourselves. Unfortunately, it's hard to beat, but that's what we keep trying to do.
I think if you launch in that way, that's the only way to make an impact and make sure really that the global organization takes it on board, right?
Yeah, we had launch parties around the world, actually. That was very cool. That was a nice ad.
So I suppose that sort of helped generate that excitement and just that understanding that, it's something to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Suzanne, can I come over to you? You're a bit of an IBM lifer. I think you described you having 6 different careers at IBM, and I would just love to hear from you about, I guess, your journey and just thinking about that culture of innovation at IBM and how you've seen that across your career.
Yeah, the thing that keeps me, and as always you consider doing something else, is I've continually been in a role where I started as a systems engineer, moved to sales, did a job in channels, always in a place where it's like a startup. You're in this amazing expertise and skills in a company that's diverse, different points of view, but each of my roles that I've navigated towards have been a place where I get to start and build or reimagine a piece of the business that ultimately has an end goal for this greater mission, which is about world changing progress, be the catalyst for our clients. So that's what's kept me. I don't think I've been at the same company, really, if you think about it. My dad was an IBMer. It was different then.
I love that it runs in the family like that it's been passed down through the generations. Have you seen, although I guess we can see that the transformation, innovation has sped up, are there any sort of particular values of the IBM brands that you think have been consistent throughout, or that you can that you really, I guess, that are both internal and external facing?
Well, listen, the thing that, again, that just trust. It's a brand that you can continually rely on and trust, and we never stop innovating. I think it's like the company with the most patents, the most investment in research. So there's this notion of just can we keep reinventing, and I guess the foundation of this company that's here to just, based on good tech, we call it, right? That's fundamentally what's continued with every invention. It's like, are we looked upon as trusted? And Sharon mentioned at the beginning some of the inventions that are, they're behind the scenes. You don't see them. They're behind the scenes. They're making the banks work. With our recent announcement, our Z announcement yesterday, amazing. Nobody, that innovation that's really taking clients to improve banking right now, with a foundation of what, I'm not going to worry about whether or not my data is going to be hacked, or because I know behind the scenes we have the technology that's making sure that keeping it secure.
Suzanne, can we just go into a bit more about that? So what are IBM doing, or what with the banks? How have they made that? What is the launch about? I haven't heard of it.
Our launch yesterday, which we had put it in the news, was about the next generation of our IBM Z platform. And that is, just in summary, you may not know it, but most of the world's biggest companies are basically running their whole hybrid cloud application against that, their whole business against it.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I find so interesting, is that it's really complicated stuff. It's really hard to articulate or give it a public face. That's why I guess I find Let's Create such a good message, because it could have been so easy to kind of bamboozle with the technology that you have, or use sort of really complex language, but you've just not gone down that route, and for good reason.
It's back to us, yeah, being simple and clear, and knowing that the message is really reinforcing that it is in partnership. Let's create with the partners. Let's create with, as Sharon talked about, the data scientists, the people who are traditionally not seen as creators.
We're going to open for questions. So if anyone does have a question, then please post it in the Q&A chat, and I can ask our panelists. But I wanted to come to you, Sharon. We talk about this startup mentality within IBM, but you still, it still is a big ship to turn. And I just wonder, I suppose that's two different sides, right? You've got the startup mentality, but it's just such a big scale, and I just wondered how that works, because we traditionally see innovation in those kind of startups, and especially in this digital age, and we see brands going from nothing to worth billions within a year, and I just wonder how hard it is to get that innovation within IBM.
Yeah, so it is and it isn't, right? So it's interesting that there's a whole research part of IBM, and I recommend to people to go to the research pages on IBM.com, because it's fun, right? There's a lot of stuff on quantum and so the innovation is happening in this company all the time. It's our job in marketing to be able to talk to that without getting really bogged down. And I would say the thing that we get bogged down in the most is there's such breadth to IBM. And that's our challenge, because our competitors tend to be more point solutions, and it's much easier for them to talk about themselves, right? Because they just do the one thing and they can talk about that. If we try to talk about everything that IBM is, your eyes are going to glaze over, because there's just so much there. And that's why coming up with a platform like Let's Create is so important, because it puts a nice pointy end on something that we can talk about that makes sense to people, but also is representative of all of the work that we're doing. I think that the cultural stuff that Suzanne talked to is what helps you have that startup culture. And I know everyone says that, right? Because that's what you really want to get to, is to be innovating really, really quickly without any friction. And I think a lot of what we did in the reorganization helped us to do that. But yes, it is hard, and you have to want to work that way, and you have to not be daunted by the hurdles, right? You just have to know that they're going to come, and push through them.
Shawn, I was really interested to hear a bit more about your everyday role over at IBM, what you do and what you contribute.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, the biggest initiative, and that ties into a lot of this brand work that we're doing, is migrating platforms right now. So yeah, I get to work with Jess quite a bit, and right now we're moving over to the Adobe Experience Manager platform. So it's a pretty huge hurdle, because I think when we think about content management systems in general, you think of one piece, maybe it's connected to DAM. What we're doing though is unifying everything in one cohesive ecosystem. So that's like, how do we handle testing? How do we do personalized content? How are we handling our image library videos? How are we making sure that, when we're talking about being able to have those consistent experiences across different geos, how are we regulating copy, things like that. These are all pieces that we're starting to tie together. And really this brand rollout is kind of the catalyst for how we're going to infuse that into the next generation of our pages. So I kind of work as a liaison between the brand team and the digital marketing team, as far as working with the creative and template design and how we actually build our pages, put those together, and testing. There's also a huge effort right now to basically retool and overhaul our information architecture, as well as the UX of how we're building our pages. And right now we're kind of hitting that on 3 major points. Number 1 is search. Second is navigation, and then in-page linking logic. And that's like Sharon was saying, when we're talking about a company that's 650, 700 products total, that's a massive undertaking to actually pin that all down and kind of figure out how do we make these overall experiences better and help our clients find what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a challenge across so many organizations. And if you don't have that central place, that platform, then brand consistency and brand message is never going to happen, is it?
Exactly. Well, and I think, IBM, it's not necessarily unique, but, IBM also, there's a ton of acquisitions that they wind up doing every year. So, it's not just, keeping our brand healthy and strong. It's also how do we integrate other brands or reinvent what that brand looks like, or how does it play nicely with the work that we're doing. So that's always a constant struggle as well, and considerations that we have to work on.
How do you stop, I guess, parts of the business going rogue and kind of using their own things?
well, so
transformation.
I think AEM is going to be a big part of that, right? So I think setting up templates and some of the built-in tools that are in the platform are going to help create guardrails for that. I think the second part kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, and that's the fact that I do think IBM has a very strong brand, but it's also well crafted. So there are a lot of guidelines and directions about how we actually create experiences. The other thing is that we're really selective about who our partners are creatively. So outside of IBM, any of the agencies that we work with go through a pretty stringent process to get vetted as official IBM vendors. So I think all that tied together tries to keeps the wheels on, so to speak. And I do feel though that is also a work in progress that we've seen a lot of evolution in over just the last 5 or 6 years. There was a time where IBM's identity, while we had a strong brand message, visually it may not have been represented because we had a lot of partner agencies that kind of had free will to kind of do what they will with it. But the brand team has gotten very tight on that over the last couple of years, and we're starting to see those results now.
Suzanne.
Also add on to what Shawn was saying is, as part of this transformation, we've very much focused on centralizing some of the governance around this. Mm-hmm. So we got ourselves into trouble in some of the old systems by giving everyone and their brother access to do whatever. And with this, we very much said, let's identify the group of people that are trained the right way to use the platforms. And then they are the only ones that are able to do some of that work. So it kind of forms a natural gating function as well, so that we can make sure that everything's reviewed the right way and in compliance with the overall brand and the messaging that we want to send out.
Yeah, Suzanne, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, since my topic of keep talking about the people, but right, if you're any organization out there, and you mentioned it, right, every organization is struggling, you can either have your marketing team where you've got a very small Scrum team that runs everything against a product, which is what we were doing. we had 40 different, stood up 40 different marketing organizations, and we each had little squads of all the expertise, the digital, the strategy, the design, UX against the product. We've consolidated. So you fundamentally can't do that now. We centralized everything, which pros and cons of that. That's what we're working through on this transformation, which is why I said it's the biggest. We've never committed to do that before. And so I think we're working through it right now. It's like we're making sure that we ensure that each product team has what they need, or the ones we prioritize, but also that we hopefully don't look like we had in the past, which we potentially were out there marketing with. You weren't sure what was the IBM look and feel. Now, wherever you are in whatever country, that one team is making sure we're aligned on the message, the look. And yes, nuanced by country. It needs to be for sure. But
do you think it still allows for creativity within, so those individual product and marketing teams?
I mean, just the amount of expertise that's come out of marketing and the function that's probably on its own career path gone through so many changes, I think it allows for a lot more creativity. Create content creators together in an expertise, whether they're coming up with the idea for systems or IBM consulting business, or it doesn't matter. They're feeding off each other, like, oh, that would work better this way. So I actually think it has a positive effect towards creativity.
And do you agree, Sharon?
Yeah, I would agree for digital, because in that atomized structure we had before, you could have maybe one digital strategist on their own in a large team, and they felt kind of a little at sea. And it's a lot harder to influence when you're just one person. But now that we've brought the whole digital discipline together, we actually have real ownership of IBM.com. It's the marketing part, right? It's not just marketing, and it allows us to look at it really boldly. There's no questions off the table. There's no possibilities off the table. And because we're a united team, we have, organic all the way through to brand, like every aspect of digital we're all in the same team. And it's fantastic because we get to talk about these big problems, these big questions, and we have the mandate to just go and do it. There's no one stopping us. There's no, there are far fewer agendas there used to be. I mean, we touched on it earlier. We have very clear focus on 5 focus areas for marketing in the business, and we structure everything around that. And that just takes a lot of the churn work off the table, right? There is a business focus, not a business unit focus, not I'm an influential executive focus. It's really clear what we're trying to do.
it also adds to, Sharon, do you agree? I mean, we're a culture of experimentation. And so we can build many, many more experiments and improve things 1%, 2% by looking at some of these projects across all product lines holistically.
That's right. We've stopped asking for permission. We used to ask for permission a lot, and then we get bogged down in that. We as a team, as cross-discipline teams, we know what we're doing, so we just do it. It happens a lot faster now.
Jess, I wanted to come back to you, and we've talked about sort of brand consistency, and I just wondered, as part of the technology transformation, if we could talk a bit about data and what consistency the technology transformation has brought to data within the organization.
Well, I will say a lot of the transformation has helped us kind of assess where some of the gaps were, specifically around data. A lot of our systems, when I first joined the company about 3 years ago, were very disconnected. And so it made it challenging for us to get a unified view, A, and then B, actually do some of the reporting to figure out whether something was working or not. So with this entire transformation, like, we've connected things in a level that they just were not before. So, like, to Suzanne's point, as we're doing these experiments, we can now say, was this working? And tell very quickly and pivot and change that test and evolve it. And just see, like, is this particular piece of content working against this audience at this point in the funnel? And then start recommending to marketers, okay, this thing worked last week, but now we have a new piece that's actually performing better. swap it out. So there's a lot of capabilities there that we're just starting to really leverage. I know I'm very excited by this because it's not only are we evolving how we're dealing with our clients, but we're also able to kind of fine tune this in a way and see the performance in a way that we've never been able to do it before.
I mean, I think that's amazing. Many brands that I speak to, you know, many marketers, they're sort of bamboozled by the data. They don't even know what data points to look at, let alone then analyze what is most effective. So it must be sort of life-changing for those on the ground doing the job every day to be able to have that data-driven approach.
And we as a company have been very focused on being data-driven in our marketing for a long time. So that approach is not new.
Yeah.
I think what is new is the transparency about what's really going on and making it a little bit easier for marketers to perform well by getting access to some of this data and having it recommended to them up front. It saves them a lot of time, a lot of energy. And frankly, it's getting us to a point where we can actually start to build and automate a bunch of this stuff without requiring human intervention, right? As Shawn had mentioned earlier, like we're really looking at trying to make it so that no one's having to manually go in and for each page build out, this is a list of case studies that are appropriate to align with this product. It's just automatically done and automatically updated with new content. It's really life-changing. It lets the marketers focus more on the strategy and the journey that the client should be having and less on the day-to-day management of just keeping the lights on.
Suzanne, we spoke earlier about that people transformation and getting sort of marketing and sales to be more aligned. Having this more cohesive or very cohesive data strategy must really help with that, because they can really see the results, you know, in real time.
Well, yeah, a lot against the same client, same customer master record, which is a first for us. If we're looking at the client from two different lenses, but we weren't sharing the data, it continuously caused tension. Now it seems so simple. Why wouldn't we have one CMS? I mean, it's one customer master rec, right? System. We've arrived. I mean, it's a testament, right? It's the tools, it's Adobe, it's Salesforce connected. It's our IBM consulting team that has thought through how to reimagine a business process. This all started with rethinking of the processes before we even took a take at, you know, what technology, but and frankly, the whole IBM consulting division, which has a whole customer experience practice, they've been doing this with clients. This is probably, we are now one of our biggest own clients, where our consulting team is helping us, and we'll be able to share some of what we've learned, as Jess talked about, in our future consulting applications as we bring this to other clients. So yeah, ultimately, that's the goal. Sales and marketing together. It's nirvana.
And so it sounds like that data piece is key in that.
The data of looking at the client together.
Yeah.
We can still get better. I think there's still opportunity to get even more insights about that client that we know is sitting in the seller's notebook. We need the sellers to start to trust that as we act on this data, we're showing 7 times increase in pipeline and sales leads, right? But we need to continue to really just work together, make it easy to access, and make that input and output of the data simpler to collect.
So what I find really interesting when you're talking about transformation is it's not a one-time project. It's as we talked about, it's kind of ongoing. It's maybe even a transformation makes it sound like it's well, you'll change something and then you're done, but actually it's this continually modernizing your business. And I just wondered if there are any sort of key takeaways or learnings from what you've been working on in the last sort of year and a half that you can share with our listeners in terms of how to how to transform and modernize your business successfully?
I'll hop in here. I would say one of the major keys is do not be afraid to get it wrong, right? The only way that you can evolve is to acknowledge when something isn't working. And to do that, you have to be honest. And we have a huge cultural thing that we've been discussing internally about radical candor, right? You need to have that. And you're not going to necessarily get it right the first time, especially if you're making a major shift. So just listen to that feedback and be willing to pivot if needed. I will also say, for my part, I'm a huge proponent of good change management. That means communication, making sure that as things are changing, you're communicating clearly and making sure people understand not only what's changing, but how their engagement with different things should be changing and their attitude, like how they work. It's not just go into this platform, click this button and do X, Y, and Z. It's a different way of thinking, and supporting the team and understanding what that means and how they need to change their viewpoint.
I have
Go
one.
ahead, Sharon.
I've worked on a lot of transformation projects, and the most counterintuitive thing I've learned, and probably the most useful thing I've learned, is to welcome bad news. To your point, Jess, is to actually really look for it, because what happens is your teams, they want to please you, particularly if you're working with an agency, and particularly if we had a great team that was so excited to work on this, but I had to dig for bad news. But if you do, you won't be sorry, because you're going to find it out sooner or later, and sooner is better. So it's really a cultural thing that you have to change. People don't expect you to want to hear, and honestly, I don't, God knows, right? But I do, right? I just have to push through that counterintuitive moment, and then that really helps a lot.
That's really at the heart of improving, and if you only ever hear good news, then really you don't get to the heart of the problem, right? Shawn, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think the other part is kind of embracing the idea of things don't have to be perfect. We definitely work in a very agile process, and I think there's a lot of rewards for that. I think a mistake that happens too often is people want to get something out on the glass and they have this expectation that it's perfect. Well, even if it was perfect, it's perfect from their vantage point. And like everyone was saying, we work off the data, and a lot of the times you put a lot of effort into something that you think is perfect, only to find out that statistically it doesn't work well. Whereas if you put those efforts into getting something out there fast and letting the people kind of decide and choose if something's good or not, you are able to pivot and then move and be able to get back on the right track for that. So I think that that's something that our team has been really good at, is embracing that idea of iteration and testing.
Is that true across the whole organization, Shawn? Does the whole of IBM embrace agile and iterative working?
Yes, I think so. I think that's always encouraged. All of it, I think, goes back to the core culture of innovation. That it's part of the DNA of IBM, so it makes sense that kind of flows through the whole company.
And Suzanne, do you have anything to add on your sort of top tips or learnings from the transformation that you've been involved in?
I mean, it's the common theme of all. It's agile at its core, but agile not just for the rituals of agile as a culture. I mean, there's 4 areas of the values. Are we open? Respect, trust, and be courageous. And then you can add the 5th, empathetic. And those are the values of agile, which enable us to say that's kind of, people sort of throw it around like, I'm doing agile, I'm sprinting. No, it's a fundamental way to live those values. And if we really think of it that way, we can only succeed.
Yeah, I really love all of those points. I think it takes a really brave organization and a brave culture, though, to embrace failure, to look deep for those mistakes and what's going wrong. And I really love that idea, Jess, of radical candor. But you really have to have I guess, a certain culture and a certain type of people within your organization to be able to have those honest conversations, right? I'm just going to see if there's any questions. We've just got really, we're at the wrapping up stage now. Is there anything else to add in terms of the future? I feel like we've got a glimpse of the future, but if there's anything else that you can share at this stage, then I would love to hear anything else that we can expect from the IBM brand. Sharon?
Well, like I said, we've got 2 more chapters. So we're in chapter 2 right now, and chapter 3 is coming up soon. Keep watching our website. So I could go to ibm.com, let's-create. You can see our gorgeous, gorgeous pages. And more will be coming through there soon.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this develops and following the IBM brand story. I really want to thank you, Sharon, Shawn, Suzanne, and Jess. I'm so glad you could join us today to really, I guess, really not just hear the top level of the the brand transformation, the technology transformation and people transformation, but to get all of your honest answers and experiences on the journeys that you've been in at IBM. So thank you so much.